let us go ahead and start discussing the next chapter, the most important chapter, company audit. So if I have to give a ranking for the chapters which are there in our auditing, I will give top rank to the company audit chapter. There will not be a question paper of audit without a question from this chapter. Okay, so such important chapter, compulsory question from this chapter. There were a few attempts where from this chapter alone sometimes 18-20 marks were also tested from this single chapter alone. So it is very much required for us to have a very much detailed understanding of this chapter. Stay calm, please. Okay, shall we start? Say a precautionary thing which I would like to take, which I would like to say even before starting the chapter. In this chapter, I am going to explain all the concepts in the form of charts. Majority, if not all, majority of the contents of this chapter, I am going to explain it in the form of charts. It is very helpful. It will be very helpful if you also record these charts in your notebook. Clear, everybody? So these charts you might not be able to find it in our material, but to the extent possible I will try to present all the information in the form of what? Charts only. If you copy these charts in your books, it will help you a lot for the preparation and also for revision. Clear? Right. So let us have some background discussion before we actually start discussing this company audit chapter. First of all, when we call an entity as a company, when it is incorporated under Companies Act, either under Companies Act 1956 or under Companies Act 2013. So once a entity is registered with the ROC under Companies Act 2013 or Companies Act already registered under Companies Act 1956, that entity we call it as what? Company. And we have seen the meaning of legal form in this chapter, fundamentals of audit. So we have seen that legal form means nothing but legal structure which you are giving to the entity. Like sole proprietor is a legal form, partnership is a legal form, company is also a what? One of the legal form. It is a legal structure which you are giving to your organization. And practically speaking, rest of all the entities, company is a bit difficult to run. Why? Because lot of procedural formalities. In each and everything, for each and every matter, Companies Act will involve and dictate some procedure that you are expected to do such activity in the company according to the provisions of the Companies Act only. So starting from the incorporation of the company till the time the company is wound up, regarding each and every matter, you take how the process of incorporation should take place, how should be the memorandum of association, articles of association should be prepared, what rules should be followed whenever they want to issue the share capital, how many number of shareholders should be there, how many minimum directors should be there, the qualification of the directors, what kind of books of accounts are required, what kind of financial statements are required, and how this, whether the company, if the company wants to accept a loans, what requirements they have to fulfill, how much remuneration they can pay to their director, CEO, CFO. For regarding all these matters, there are hard and fast rules which needs to be followed. These much procedural complexities will not be there when it comes to other kinds of legal form. Very obvious. For example, if you want to run a sole trader business, you need not perform these kind of procedural formalities. You can start it, you can do business whatever you want, you can take the loan from whatever person, you can pay whatever salary you want. Whenever you want to wind up, simply you can wind up. No such procedural formalities when compared with the other entities. But when it comes to Companies Act, for each and everything there is a procedural aspects which are there under Companies Act, and the management of the company is expected to fulfill all those procedural formalities. So because of these procedural formalities, because of these procedural restrictions, so many people stop themselves from incorporating companies. So that's why we don't see companies that frequently. So whatever volume of sole proprietor firms, partnership firms we have, we will not be able to see these volume of companies also. Why guys? Once you incorporate a company, I agreed you will have so many benefits. According, in addition to the benefits, lot of procedural complexities also will come and take place. So because of all these procedural complexities, it is very, I will generally say it is a bit complicated to run the business of the company. I'm not telling it is impossible. If you have enough of knowledge, if you have enough of manpower to take care of this procedural formalities, lot of benefits will be there for the company. But keeping aside these procedural formalities, keeping aside these benefits, there are so many procedural formalities, starting from the incorporation of the company till the time it is liquidated. Now, as I have told you, the meaning of statutory audit. What do you mean by statutory audit? The audit which is mandatorily required under any law for the time being in force. Now tell me whether a company audit is a statutory audit or non-statutory audit. It is going to be a statutory audit. Why it is statutory audit? Why? Because Companies Act 2013 has clearly mentioned audit accounts of each and every company needs to be audited. They did not say any criteria. What they simply told, the accounts of every company needs to get audited. So that's why we call company audit as a what? Statutory audit. So now this company audit, in this chapter what we are going to learn is a few section of the Companies Act we are going to learn here. So as I have told you, the majority of our chapters are taken from what? Standards on audit, right? But I have also told you there are few chapters which are not taken from standards. One such chapter is a company audit chapter. When we discuss company audit chapter, we are not discussing about the standards. What is the content we are actually discussing? We are discussing about a few sections of the Companies Act here. In law, all the sections of Companies Act you will learn except these sections which I am going to teach here in this company audit chapter. Since I told you Companies Act will come and involve in each and every procedural aspect, even Companies Act is involving in audit related matters also. Companies Act is giving enough of rules and regulations regarding appointment of auditor, who is eligible for appointment, who is not eligible for appointment, rights of auditor, duties of the auditor, what he has to report. All this consolidated information has already been given where? Companies Act only. So when I say I am discussing the company audit chapter, I am discussing a few sections of the Companies Act in this chapter. Nothing but a part of the law we are discussing here. Clear everybody? So let us have a look. What are those sections which we are going to discuss as a part of this company audit chapter? We all know Companies Act 2013 is arranged in the form of chapters. So one chapter, that section 128 to section 138. These are the sections in the Companies Act which actually deal with books of accounts and financial statements. What do they deal with? Books of accounts and financial statements. From which section to which section? 128 to 138. Immediately after this chapter, we have section 139 till section 148. These sections are dealing with audit and auditors. So section 139 to section 148 are actually the sections of the Companies Act which are dealing with what? Audit and related matters. But one more thing here. Even though section 138 has been classified under books of accounts and financial statements, section 138 is actually dealing about a topic called internal audit. Regarding what? Internal audit. So what we are going to, which sections we are going to discuss in this chapter company audit means from section 138 till section 148. So these 11 sections we are going to discuss as a part of our which chapter? Company audit chapter. This is what our agenda for discussing this company audit chapter. These sections of the Companies Act we have to discuss. This part of the law we have to discuss as a part of this chapter. Clear everybody? Comfortable till now? Right. So now let us have a look at some statistics. In India, as on current date, approximately some 17 lakh plus companies are incorporated. How many companies are currently in operation in India? 17 lakh plus companies are currently incorporated with the ROC. But out of these 17 lakh companies, so many companies are there which are dormant companies. What do you mean by dormant companies? Inactive companies. Just they have incorporated and left it out. No effective transactions are happening. Sometimes we call them as shell companies also. So these out of this 17 lakh plus of companies, we are having somewhere close to some 4 to 5 lakhs of companies are some dormant companies. A big figure is there in the dormant companies who doesn't actively run their business. Out of the rest of the companies, a very handful of companies we have as a public limited companies. Majority we have private limited companies. A very small number are there in the format of what? Public limited companies. In these public limited also, a small portion are actually listed. Not all public companies are listed. Only a handful of companies, somewhere close to some 3,000 to 4,000 companies are listed with the recognized stock exchange of our India, which are NSE and BSE. So a handful of companies are listed. Other than this, we have a small percentage in the form of public limited companies, and majority of the companies are what? Private limited companies. Where public participation will be actually there? In the listed companies category, we as a common individual, we can participate in the ownership of only a listed company. So whatever company which is listed in the stock exchange, that shares we can buy or sell in the ordinary course of business. So retail investor participation will be there in which category of companies? Listed companies only. So now all these companies which are there in India, which are incorporated, are required to get their accounts audited, irrespective of the fact whether you are running the business or not, whether you are having profits or not, whether you are having cash flows or not, that doesn't matter. Each and every company is mandatorily required to get their accounts audited. There is no exemption given to any of the company. It is mandatory for all the companies to get their accounts audited. And how to conduct the audit of these companies? Who is eligible for conducting the audit? What should be the rights? What should be the duties? What should be the scope? Everything is discussed under what sections of the Companies Act? Section 138 to Section 148 of the Companies Act. That is what we are going to discuss now. Clear, everyone? Right. So having told about this background discussion, now let us actually start discussing sections one by one. Clear, everybody? Right. So we will start our discussion with section 141 of the Companies Act. Which section we will start with? Section 141. 138, 139, 140 I will teach you, but at a later point of time. We will start our discussion with what? Section 141. So this section 141 is actually having 4 subsections. How many subsections? 4 subsections. Subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 3 and subsection 4. And each of the subsection will be dealing about different issues. Like subsection 1 will be dealing about qualifications of the auditor. Subsection 2 will be dealing about signing of the auditor's report. Subsection 3 will be dealing about disqualifications. Subsection 4 will be dealing about subsequent disqualifications. So 4 subsections of section 141. Each subsection will be dealing about a specific matter. Like subsection 1 will be dealing about what? Qualification. Subsection 2 will be dealing about signing of the auditor's report. Subsection 3 will be dealing about disqualification. Subsection 4 will be dealing about subsequent disqualification. Now when I tell you the section number, immediately a question will be ready in your mind. What is that? Sir, is it required to remember section numbers? So that bug will be moving in your brain. I know. So what is the appropriate answer? Advisable. What we simply say? It is highly recommendatory or advisable to remember the section numbers also. Why? Because section numbers are going to increase your presentation. If you mention the section number, it will be like the answer is to the point. But it is not mandatory, as I told, but I will suggest each and every one of you to make an effort to remember the section numbers also. I will not ask you to remember even subsections also. At least try to remember each of this main section number. Section 141, what does it deal with? Section 138, what does it deal with? So at least you remember the main section. No need to remember subsections. Generally not required. So but make an effort to remember the section numbers also. In the examination, when you perfectly remember the section number, please write that section number. If you don't remember, what you are supposed to do? You have to write as per the relevant provisions of the respective act, but don't write the wrong section number. Why? Because quoting a wrong section number is very, very dangerous. So it will make you, even if you write all the content correctly, but you quote the wrong section number, the examiner will not give you marks. Okay, so it will completely destroy the presentation if you give a wrong section number. So make an effort to remember section number. Please try to quote the correct section number in the answer while you are writing the answers in the main exam, but never ever try to quote the wrong section number. If you don't forget, or in the exam tension, if you have forgot the section number, don't write that section number. Only when you have perfection, yes, this is the section which is dealing with this respective matter, then definitely include that section number. When you have some confusion, when you have some doubt, please don't write the wrong section number and come. Clear, everybody? So, but my humble request, my suggestion, please remember, please try to remember. Clear, everybody? So we will try to start our discussion with qualification. What do you mean by qualification? Qualifications of auditor. What do I mean by this term? See, as I have told you, Companies Act is telling audit of each and every company is mandatory. Along with that, Companies Act is also telling who is that appropriate person who is qualified to do that independent verification. What qualification a person should possess to conduct that audit. So that is also specified under section 141 subsection 1, which is dealing about what? Qualifications. Qualifications means nothing but eligibility criteria. Who is eligible to act as a auditor of a company. So simply what the section 141 subsection 1 says is, if an individual wants to get appointed as an auditor, individual person, if he wants to get appointed as an auditor, the requirement, the qualification which that individual has to possess is, he should be a chartered accountant having a certificate of practice. COP means certificate of practice. Simply we call such a person as practicing chartered accountants. Sir, now what do you mean by the certificate of practice, sir? See, you all know, once you qualify your CA final exam, for your career, you will be having two options. What are they? You can go for a job, or you can go for what? Practice. So going for a job means what? Finding some good company, join as their employee, you will get the monthly salary. What do you mean by practice? You set up your own profession. Like practicing lawyers will be there, no? So they will start their own office, the clients will come to them, they will fight for their clients, charge the fees. Similarly, we chartered accountants also can set up our own practice. So people can come to us, they can have the services. It is like running our own business, right? So you'll be having two options. So generally, once you qualify your CA final, you need to first apply for the membership. So till that time, you will be a student. As per ICAI records, you will be having SRO number, like registration number you will have. But once you are done with your qualification, what you need to do? You have to submit one application along with the payment of prescribed fees for allotment of membership number. So if you make that application, you will get a membership number, which will be a 6-digit numeric number. So now, once you get that membership number, will you be eligible to act as auditor of a company? No. No, not it. Now, once you get your membership number, now you will take your decision whether you want to go for practice or whether you want to go for job. If you go for job, you can't carry out the practice. That is a rule of ICAI. So you have decided to go for job, no extra requirement, just go ahead. But if you want to carry out a practice, now you need to do one more thing. After getting your membership number, you need to submit one more application to the institute. Sir, I want to carry out my own practice. Like that, once again you have to submit an application along with the payment of prescribed fees once again. Not once. This COP fees, membership fees paid should be paid each and every year you have to pay. So normal membership fees is 1500 rupees, and COP if you have to pay yearly 3000 rupees. Every year you have to pay. It is a normal figure only. So it is not such a huge figure. Why? Because we are earning a living out of it, right? So definitely you need to pay membership fees or COP fees. So if you apply for that institute along with some prescribed fees payment, then they will give you one certificate called certificate of practice. So such a person only can be appointed as auditor. So a person who is a chartered accountant and having a certificate of practice, that is simply we call such a person as practicing chartered accountant. Only a practicing chartered accountant is eligible for appointing as an auditor of a company. If you are just a qualified chartered accountant, just a member, but you are not having a certificate of practice, will you be eligible to act as an auditor of a company? Definitely not. You need what? Certificate of practice compulsorily for conducting an audit of any company. So these are the eligibility if an individual has to be appointed as an auditor. But you might have seen in the outside environment, we see audit firms. Now, what is this audit firm? What is this audit firm? It is nothing but a partnership firm of chartered accountants. Like for example, assume myself, me being a practicing chartered accountant. I am a chartered accountant, I am having a certificate of practice also. My friend is there, another person, Mr. N, he is also a chartered accountant, he is also having a certificate of practice. Instead of starting our practice separately, what we can do is, we both can enter into a partnership agreement. We can create a partnership firm called MN & Co. we have created, and in the name of this partnership firm, we are providing the auditing services, and whatever business, whatever profits we are having out of this partnership firm, we will share it just like a normal partnership firm only, but the business is what? Providing audit services. So we'll be sharing profits, we'll be sharing the contributing capital, everything will be like a normal partnership. So there is an audit firm now in which two partners are there. Both the partners are practicing chartered accountants. This is how we see the audit firms in the outside environment. We see partnership firms of the auditors. Now tell me, can this partnership firm be appointed as an auditor of a company? Can a partnership firm be appointed? Yes, there is no doubt in that. Why? Because when you are permitting a single person to act as auditor of a company, why not a partnership firm can be appointed in which all partners are practicing chartered accountants? Yes, you can do it. Even a partnership firm is also eligible for appointment as an auditor of a company. But now let me add you one more doubt. Let me create a complex scenario. See, in the recent past, a new kind of firms are developing, which we call it as multidisciplinary firms, we call it. Now, what do you mean by this multidisciplinary firms is, people from different professions are coming together and creating a partnership firm. Like for example, a partnership firm is there in which two partners are practicing chartered accountants. One partner is a cost and management accountant. One partner is a company secretary. So all these four people from different professions, all of them came together and they created a firm ABCD & Co. Now, can this firm be appointed as an auditor? See, in the previous scenario, there is no doubt. Why? Because all the partners are what? They're practicing chartered accountants. But in this multidisciplinary firm, what is happening? A few partners are practicing chartered accountants. There are partners from other professions also. Now, my doubt is, can this multidisciplinary firm be appointed as an auditor of a company? So what this Companies Act has told is, yes, any kind of firm can be appointed, but they put a condition here. What is the condition which they put is, majority of partners should be practicing chartered accountants. So if this majority of the partners should be practicing chartered accountants, if this condition is fulfilled, yes, that firm or LLP can be appointed as an auditor without any restriction. But if the majority of partners are not practicing chartered accountants, then can we appoint such firm as an auditor of a company? No. Now tell me, depending upon that understanding, will this firm ABCD & Co be eligible for appointment as an auditor of a company? The answer is no. Why no? Totally, how many partners are there? 4. In 4, how many partners are practicing chartered accountants? In 4, 2 is exactly how much percentage? 50%. Can exactly 50% be called as majority? When we call it as majority? When we have more than 50%. So here, if 3 partners are practicing chartered accountants out of 4 partners, yes, then they can be appointed. But in the given scenario, can they be appointed? The answer is no, they cannot be appointed. Now let us consider another firm in which 5 partners are there. 5 partners are there in the partnership firm. Out of them, 3 are practicing chartered accountants. Rest of the 2 are from other professions. Can they be appointed as an auditor? Yes, they can be appointed. So majority, you remember, if there are 6 partners, minimum how many partners should be there? Minimum 4 partners should be there. So majority of the partners are practicing chartered accountants in a firm, then those firms can be appointed as auditor of a company. Clear, everybody? Able to understand? Does this multidisciplinary firm really exist? Yes, they do exist. Not in the small towns and cities, but in the metropolitan cities, they are growing nowadays. Why? Because some clients are expecting to have all the services under one roof only. So if you have partners from multiple professions, all the services will be available under one roof only or not. Similarly, there are some firms where even lawyers also are becoming a partners. So we chartered accountants along with the lawyers, along with other professionals, we are becoming partners, not doctors actually. Why? Because it is completely unrelated, no? Right. So we are, along with other professionals, if we create a partnership firm, we can provide multiple kind of services to the clients under one entity only. So that's why these multidisciplinary firms are getting a lot of attention from the community in the recent past, and these multidisciplinary firms are very much growing. And these firms can be appointed provided what is the condition, guys? Majority of partners are practicing chartered accountants. So what is the next condition now? Individual can be appointed, even firm also can be appointed. See, whenever I say firm, one thing you have to remember, firm includes LLP also. What does firm include? LLP also. So a firm or LLP can be appointed as an auditor provided what is the condition? Majority of partners are practicing chartered accountants. So if this condition is fulfilled, even the firm also can be appointed as an auditor. So this is the eligibility criteria which is specified under section 141 subsection 1 of the Companies Act. Clear everybody? Now let us come to the subsection 2, which is regarding signing of the auditor's report. So now we have seen that after completing all the audit, what is the ultimate objective of the auditor? To express an opinion. And how that opinion will be expressed? In the form of a written report. So now auditor will take a piece of paper, in that he will tell his opinion. Should that document be signed or not? Without signing of the auditor, the document will no longer have any validity. So what creates that validity to the document? Which is sign of the auditor. So definitely there is a requirement on the auditor to sign on the audit report whatever he is giving. So now who will sign the audit report? Let us have a look into that. See, if an individual is appointed as an auditor, who will sign the audit report? The same individual, there is no doubt in that. So here there is no clarity. Who, if individual is appointed, the same individual who is appointed as an auditor will sign the audit report. What if the firm or LLP is appointed as an auditor? Who will sign the audit report? Will all the partners of the firm are required to sign the audit report? The answer is no. Any one partner who is a practicing chartered accountant, only that person can sign the auditor's report. So who will sign audit report if it is a firm? Any partner who is a practicing chartered accountant. Not other partners can sign, only practicing chartered accountant partner can only sign the audit report on behalf of the entire firm. And generally what we call that person? Engagement partner we call it. If there are so many partners are there, but out of all these partners, if one partner is signing the audit report, that partner we generally call it as what? Engagement partner. Why? Because he is responsible for that assignment, no? So that is the meaning of engagement partner. Now you might have got a clarity what does exactly engagement partner refer to. Clear everybody? So this is regarding signing of the audit report. So two subsections we are done in section 141. What are they? Qualifications of the auditor, signing of the auditor's report. This will be your first question in the chapter. So have a look at it. I will not read it once again. So just what is the book number? Oh, I think it's not yet loaded here. Online people, is the material available with you? Please respond. Online people, you have access to the material? Someone is telling yes, someone is telling no. All belong to the same class only, no? No, 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 no. Check your drive on. Some people are telling yes. What is this here? So crazy. PDF given. That's what I am also asking. I am not asking for physical copy given or not. Is PDF has been shared or not? That's what I am asking. I think PDF should have been given for them also. Okay. So if you open the material, the same thing will be there under question number 1, section 141 subsection 1, section 141 subsection 2. Now there will be one concept question there. Give me the material in the meantime. I will ask your in charge to load it. So concept question, if you observe, first concept question. Any partner of an LLP who is appointed as an auditor of a company can sign the audit report. Do you agree with that statement? Read the sentence carefully. Any partner of an LLP who is appointed as an auditor of company can sign the audit report. See, it is actually a hypothetical question. You can give answer as true also, You can call it as false also. But what does matter there is the explanation which you are giving there. See, what here is in suggested answer, what they have given is the answer as true. Any partner of an LLP is appointed as an auditor of a company. Yes, you can write it as true. But what explanation he will give? Yes, any partner can sign the audit report provided he is a practicing chartered accountant. Now, alternatively, you can write the answer as false also. What explanation you will give then? Every partner cannot sign the audit report. Only that partner who is a practicing chartered accountant can sign the audit report. See, both the statements are equally valid. So, you can write the answer as true also, false also. But what is more important here? The explanation which you give, the reason which you are telling will be very, very important. Got the logic here? So, here in the answer what they are telling? True. True, and explanation what they are telling? The partner who is a chartered accountant in practice can sign audit report. Yes, any partner can sign audit, or alternatively we can write any partner can sign the audit report provided he is a practicing chartered accountant. Alternatively, what also you can write? False you can write. You can say not every partner can sign audit report. Only that partner who is a practicing chartered accountant can sign the audit report. So here explanation does matter than the answer which you are giving, true or false. Than that, what is more important here? Explanation is going to be very, very important. Clear everybody? Right. So this is regarding section 141 subsection 1 and section 141 subsection 2. Let us discuss now section 141 subsection 3, which is what disqualification. Now qualifications means eligibility criteria. What do you mean by disqualification? Who is not eligible? Simply, when qualifications means eligibility, disqualifications means what? Who is not eligible for conducting audit of company. As simple as that. Guys, this topic is going to be very, very important. Every time whenever the question comes from the company audit chapter, 80% of the time question comes from disqualifications only. Compulsory a question will be there from this disqualifications, and out of entire subject of audit, a concept which is of top priority, disqualifications. Clear? So let us have a look at what do you mean by disqualification. As we told, disqualification means the people who are not eligible for appointment as an auditor. But one more doubt I would like to put before you. Now, these are disqualifications. Under this section, what actually we are going to see is they will give us few circumstances or scenarios where a person cannot be appointed as an auditor. So in total, some 10 different scenarios they will give. If you are attracting any of this scenario, you will not be eligible for appointment as an auditor. Now a question for you. Now these circumstances of disqualification, should we look this from the perspective of a person who is already a chartered accountant, that is who is already a practicing chartered accountant, or for other than practicing chartered accountant, we will look into these circumstances. Understood my question what I told? Say disqualification contains circumstances. If you come across these circumstances, you are not eligible for appointment. Now my doubt is, whatever circumstances we are going to look into, should we look them from the perspective of a person who is already a practicing chartered accountant, or for other than a practicing chartered accountant? For a person who is already a practicing chartered accountant. Why? Because if he is not a practicing chartered accountant, he is not having enough of qualifications under subsection 1 only. No. So if we have come till section 141 subsection 3 means what? He is eligible under, he is equally qualified under section 141 subsection 1. That is, he is already a practicing chartered accountant having COP, or he is an audit firm in which majority of partners are practicing chartered accountants. So he is qualified under section 141 subsection 1. But even after qualification also, if he is attracting any of the disqualifications under section 141 subsection 3, then he will not be eligible. Even though he possesses certificate of practice, even though he is an audit firm in which majority of partners are practicing chartered accountants. Clear everybody? Clear about the circumstances? So now let us have a look into that. Disqualifications. What are those circumstances which if you come across will not be eligible for appointment as an auditor, which is given under question number 2. So if you observe question number 2, lot of circumstances we have given. So in that first circumstance, you might have seen body corporate other than LLP. What they said in the first clause, 141 subsection 3 clause A. What is the first clause? Body corporate other than LLP. First let us concentrate on this term, body corporate. So they are giving one of the disqualification as body corporate. What does that mean? should a body corporate be eligible for appointment as an auditor or should not be eligible for appointment as an auditor? Eligible or not eligible? Not eligible. Why? Because they are giving this term under what? Disqualifications. So disqualification, the first disqualification is what? Body corporate. A body corporate is not eligible for appointment as an auditor. First we need to understand when we call an entity as body corporate. When we call an entity as body corporate. See, the term has been defined under Companies Act, but the definition is very confusing than providing clarity. So I will tell you when an entity will be exactly called as a body corporate. So a few conditions are required to be fulfilled by an entity in order to be called as a body corporate. So what are those conditions? Means it should be registered, it should be created under separate statute. Created under some specific statute. That means created under some law. So it should be created under separate statute. It should have separate legal entity. I hope these terms you are all aware. Separate legal entity. It should have a perpetual succession. And also having limited liability. So an entity which is having these kind of characteristics, we call that entity as what? Body corporate. So what are those conditions? Which is created under a specific statute. That means it should be created under some respective law. It should have a what? Separate legal entity should be there. And it should have perpetual succession. What do you mean by perpetual succession? The company, the entity will continue irrespective of their members or not. Yes or no? So that is what we call perpetual succession. Next one is what? Limited liability should be there. Now tell me, generally, which kind of entity qualifies under this definition body corporate? Company. So generally, which kind of entity will come under this definition? Company. So what they are simply trying to say is, if auditors want to create a company, and through that company, if you want to provide auditing services, through that company, if you want to provide company audit to any other company, is it permitted? No. That is the reason why we generally don't see audit companies. We see individual practicing chartered accountants, we see partnership firms also. But we will not be able to find audit companies. I'm not telling it will not be existent, but rarely we see audit companies. Especially in these kind of towns and cities, we will not be able to find audit company. Why? Because if you are create a company, you will be directly disqualified for conducting company audit. One revenue area is gone from your scope. So nothing but, like for example, as I have told, some 4 chartered accountants are there. All of them have qualified. So they all obtained COP also. A, B, C, D, 4 people. These 4 people became shareholders. They created one company, A, B, C, D Private Limited. So all these 4 practicing chartered accountants are shareholders, each holding 25% of the share capital. These 4 people are also directors of the company. So they have created ABCD Private Limited, and in the name of this company, they want to provide auditing services. Now tell me, can this company ABCD Private Limited, which contains 4 members or 4 directors who are practicing chartered accountants, can this company be appointed as auditor for another company? The answer is no. Why? Because they are coming under what definition? Body corporate definition. So I will tell you the logic specifically why body corporate has been specifically disqualified. Because of what reason the body corporate is not eligible for appointment, that reason I will explain to you tomorrow. But please remember, body corporate is eligible or not eligible? Not eligible for appointment as an auditor. The logic I will explain to you tomorrow. Clear everybody? Right. So that's all for today. Rest of the things we'll discuss in the next class. Take care everybody. Bye.